Good afternoon, everyone. Hope all of you are having an absolutely fantastic day. Welcome to the Silent Minority. I am your host, Samori Sykes, and with me is Hudson Meadows. We hope to bring you a fantastic episode today. Before we get into the regular topics, since this is our very first episode, I thought it'd probably be a good idea to explain to you a little bit why we decided to start this podcast. So, like I said, my name is Samori, and I have lived in the Chicagoland area all my life. And like a lot of you, I've been disappointed to see the progression of the city. And I'm not satisfied with most of the things that I've heard about how to fix our issues, both from a structural standpoint and from a cultural standpoint in the Black community. And so I'm hoping that this podcast will serve as a vehicle, not only for me to be able to share my own thoughts or my own opinions and connect with people who might either think the same or think differently and maybe will educate and enlighten me. But also, I'm hoping to connect with people who are about action, who are willing to either put their time forward, put their money forward, be boots on the ground to help push for the things that this city really needs in order to improve the lives of the people that are here. And so, again, hopefully, this podcast can serve as a vehicle for me to be able to connect and bring about action. Hudson, why don't you talk a little bit about what made you want to be a part of the podcast?
I just have to say that, first, as Samori said, I'm Hudson. I've lived in Chicago. I was born and raised here, and then I moved away for a little while. Um, Hell, I think I was gone for about a decade, maybe a little more. And then
Hmm.
I moved back, and it was kind of the same Chicago, but it kind of wasn't. There were a lot of things I recognized from before, and there were a lot of things that were new. But what remained, and maybe got a little worse, is that we're not on good footing here. There's something not right here, and I don't know the answer. I don't know the answer. I love my city, but I don't know the answer. But what I do know is it can't hurt to have a conversation about it. Sometimes the answers start there.
Absolutely, absolutely. I agree. So, most of the time on this podcast, we'll more than likely be talking about issues directly impacting Chicago, whether it be social, political, or community based. Or we'll also take opportunities to talk about what's happening in the Black community, especially as it pertains to Black men. So,
And there's a lot that goes on in the Black community. There's too much.
so I say all that to say the topics for today are going to be a little bit out of the ordinary. There's been so much happening in the news that I felt passionate about and really want to talk about that it's really not going to be Chicago based, which is going to be out of the norm for the show. But in the future, that's the kind of content you can expect. But all that
And
being
let's
said,
let's say though, all this stuff we're going to talk about today,
mhm,
it has happened in Chicago, happens in Chicago, probably happening in Chicago right now.
yeah, most of it. But I'm going to start off with the exception, which is Brittney Griner. Today, she was convicted in the Russian justice system and sentenced to 9 years in prison for accidentally smuggling in, I think it was a vape pen. And I felt passionate about it because my heart just breaks for the sister. My heart just
Wow.
breaks for her. I mean, one mistake, and it has had such an incredible negative effect on your life. I can't imagine being forced to stay in a foreign prison, but to be forced into that situation while you're openly lesbian in a place that is well known for being hostile towards that group is just, it's just got to be terrifying. It's just got to be terrifying. And as much as my as much as my heart breaks for it, I also understand why the White House has taken so long to try to get her out. They don't want to release somebody who is going to help Russia be able to collect more arms, put American troops in harm's way. They don't want to basically do something that could potentially empower Russia from a military standpoint in order to be able to free her. And as horrible as that is, I understand. And so it just makes the situation even more devastating because who really sees a light at the end of the tunnel? Who really believes that there's a possibility that this woman will be free before her 9-year term is served? It's just absolutely awful. Hudson, your thoughts?
Well, I mean, first off, I mean, it's like it's over hash oil, right? Well, I mean, I've been trying to look up, and sorry to the cannabis community out there,
Yeah.
I do not know how much hash oil this is. Like the way they
It
sentence
was
her,
less
it's
than a
like they
gram.
less than a gram, but I don't like that's concentrated stuff, right? So
Right.
can you do something with it and somehow like I
There's there's no thought process whatsoever that she was going there to distribute. The problem is that Russia has extremely strict laws regarding this substance, period. They don't tolerate it over there the way that it's tolerated here in the United States. And so her bringing it with her in that bag was a huge mistake. And she's already stated that she wasn't trying to sneak it in. She simply forgot that it was in her bag. But some mistakes you just can't make.
I don't know. I mean, this seems like I mean, 9 years over this, and I have to think this is a negotiation tactic because they've already tried or sent a prisoner swap now a request from the White House. Right now, granted, it was a long time after, but from what I'm reading on from various sources within the news and various news channels, is that there was never going to be a a swap until she was convicted, until she was sentenced, and it seems now that the sentence is going to help with somehow that they can get more out of this deal in a prisoner swap.
So that's not what I've read. I'll make 2 points about this. One, Russian courts are absolutely notorious for being ruthless. There's been many cases where people have stood in those courts and have clearly either been flat out innocent or the charges against them are not to the degree of what they've done and they've been convicted anyway. In fact, that's how Putin has gotten rid of a lot of his political allies. He doesn't kill them. He just puts these nonsensical charges on them and they get convicted and basically thrown in prison for so many years that they become a non-issue. So the fact that this sentence is so heavy-handed, I would say that's not really, at least from what I've read, without having ever been there, without having ever talked to a person who lives in Russia about their justice system. I didn't feel like it was like way off course or way out of the ordinary. Now, as far as negotiations with the United States, what I read is Russia asked for an arms dealer that we are currently holding. And the White House was unwilling to trade a major arms dealer in exchange for a basketball player. And so that became the issue. So my understanding now is the negotiations the White House is doing is that that arms dealer is still going to be released, but Brittney Griner is not the only person that the U.S. is going to get back. And so they're trying to find a way to make it essentially worth it for them to release a major arms dealer who I guess is immediately going to be able to help Russia again be able to stockpile more arms. They've got to, U.S. has got to get back enough people where they feel like that's an acceptable loss.
Well, and see, that's where, to me, that's where that conviction, that short conviction, and that 9 years comes into play. And that now it's definitely 9 years on the table, as opposed to you don't know what they were going to sentence her at that point.
Yeah, I guess that's
So,
true.
so for me, I mean, all of this became because, she's got a big target on her back. She's like 6'9". So
Hmm.
it's not like she didn't stand out immediately in there.
Hmm.
And luckily, from every picture I have seen, it doesn't look like she was harmed, or I haven't read reports that she was attacked.
Yeah, but
You
it's
know,
hard to know. Like when people are
it's
real experts in torture, they're also experts in making it not look like people are actually being tortured.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely hard to be able to tell. I would have to think though something would have came out.
Well,
because I think she's been in at least in contact with at least her wife or something of that nature, to my understanding. I thought.
yeah, but I feel like even if the wife did detect that something serious was happening, you don't necessarily broadcast that because it could put her in danger. You know,
Yeah,
you don't
I
know
mean,
how
maybe,
Russia is going to react to that.
maybe that's
Yeah.
very true, very true. You know, I would definitely go the other way with it. I'm gonna broadcast to the world. Russia beating my Russia's beating my wife right now, beating the hell out of her. What we gonna
Mhm.
do about it? I mean,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
you know it brings me to a whole other thing that really troubles me is why was she there in the first place? I mean, I'm sorry, as an American, why are we going to Russia? Right? And
Mhm.
I'm not trying to be funny. Russia has there's beautiful areas in Russia, nice history, great history to go and look at. But with the way the world is, Russia is one of the last places I'm thinking about visiting. So
Mhm.
why is she even there? Why is she even there? And the answer falls back on she's trying to get supplemental income.
Right.
She is a woman in the WNBA who was averaging 20 points per game in most of her career. Almost double-digit rebounds for most of her career. She's been an All-Star, won a WNBA championship. She's pretty much been a star. She makes a little over $200,000 a year,
Mhm.
right? I just saw a meme where LeBron James is making more money than the entire WNBA.
Mhm.
Right? He said he's making 37 million. The entire rosters of all the WNBA is not making that. And I'm not saying that the best player in the WNBA should be making 37 million because they're not playing 82 games a season. They're not, they're not. They don't have stadiums packed like the NBA does.
Mhm.
But somewhere I gotta think they should be doing better than this.
So, I think there's a mix of reasons why they're not making more money. I mean, basically, what it comes down to at the end of the day is they're not generating enough income to be paid more. That's just, from everything I've read, that's just a bona fide fact. Yes, that LeBron is making more money than all of them combined, but he's also generating several times more money than arguably all of them combined. So the question has to become, how do you put a product out on the floor that people will come out and support and fill the arenas for? And I feel like a lot of the things that have been suggested to improve the WNBA, people are against, such as lowering the rim so that some of these women can actually dunk and do some of the things that you would be able to see in an NBA game. And I also feel like, I feel like the reason that WNBA doesn't do well financially is the same reason why abortion rights were taken away. Women don't support other women. They just don't. And it seems like all the people who express a lot of passion about these issues don't want to deal with that. They always want to make it about, well, men need to do something about this. LeBron James should speak up more. He should support the WNBA more. They never want to say what is the real honest truth. Women don't support other women, and it is very difficult to be successful in any sort of business aspect in this country without the support of women. All those little Republican candidates who came together and propped up the Supreme Court and propped up Trump and said, "Yo, we're going to get rid of abortion all across the country." They got elected with strong support from women. So until women decide that they want the WNBA to do well, it will do poorly because it's not going to be men filling up those seats. It's just not. So women have to decide that it's important to them. And I feel like the people who are speaking on this publicly need to be honest about the issue instead of saying what women want to hear, that men should do more, men should be making this happen, blah, 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 blah. This is not a men's issue. It's just not. Y'all need to support the things that are there for you.
Well, I think I think, always the question, how much of it is men, how much of it is women. And I gotta say, I mean, when you look back at the totality of history, it all stems from men deciding that they're going to be the dominant and women
Historically,
be the subs. But
historically.
but and for perspective, because I know somebody who listens to this is going to go, wait, you just said she makes over $200,000 a year.
Hmm.
So why is she struggling? So let me put that in perspective, right? $200,000 a year. It's great money if you were able to make it for the next 30 years, right?
Hmm.
But she might have, and especially after this situation, who knows how many more years, if any. She's 31 now. How many more years would she have had in the WNBA to play and make this? She didn't start off in the WNBA making 200,000 a year. So then, realistically, let's say she were to retire by 35 from the WNBA. Does she have the money to live the rest of her life? Right? Or
Right.
is she going to find a job that's going to pay her nearly that much? Is she going to be able to be a coach? Is she going to be able to
Have
go and be a
commercials.
scout? We don't
Hmm.
know,
Hmm.
right? So when I say I know, I said it quickly, and I don't want people to lose perspective that in her case, $200,000 a year is no guarantee of the rest of her life. So let me put that out there. Now, the second part of this, um, really, all it's going to take a lot more time, right? So, but that's time if they are managing the product correctly,
That's
right?
a great point.
Because we gotta think the NBA didn't come out gangbusters,
Hmm.
right? And remember when Jordan started getting his really big contracts, it was the first of their kind at that point, and then others started getting those mega deals of 30 million a year and things like that. Until that, no, right?
Hmm.
It took Harlem Globetrotters. It took some spectacles to help bring basketball to where it is today, right? And that took a lot of work and a lot of years, right? When you look at the NFL, same thing. Back when we won the Super Bowl 40 years ago, players wasn't making near what they're making now. Some of them made a great living, but still, more than not, most of them didn't have what they have now, which is able to retire early from the sport and be able to live comfortably for the rest of their
So
lives.
I,
It
I
takes
ag-
time.
I agree and disagree with you though. I disagree because yes, the NBA took a while to rev up, but the NBA didn't have the advantage of a behemoth organization that was doing the exact same thing that was essentially supporting their product, which the WNBA has. It's not really starting from scratch. It's starting from the foundation that the NBA has already set. And I would argue as well that the progression we've seen thus far from the WNBA probably doesn't compare well to the progression that the NBA had for the same duration of time. However, I will say I agree with you from the standpoint that I think the WNBA is poorly run. It was just what a month ago that there was that. I don't know if it was the championship or the most valuable player for the WNBA finals, but they had an award for this lady, and it was basically like this little this little teacup award. It looked like something you would get at a high school for like the best science project. It looked absolutely crazy. Like they put no effort into it whatsoever. It looked extremely cheap, and you could tell that the woman who won the award was kind of embarrassed to hold it up. To be honest,
Mhm.
like I there's just no way anyone of real competency would have allowed that to happen. And so I definitely agree with you that the WNBA is poorly managed, but I would also say to attract good management, you need to actually pay them. So if you're not generating real income, it's hard to get real talent. That's just the name of the game. So again, it comes down to how much money you actually generating. So I feel like the WNBA needs to do more to make the product on the floor something that's going to attract people. But also at the end of the day, again, women have to decide, you know what, we are going to support this. We are going to make this successful because it's important to us that the Women's Basketball League does well because we want to see these sisters doing well. That decision has to be made before WNBA is really going to take off. You
See,
can't
let me
expect
see,
men to be the one to prop it up.
let me say, like, because as far as the product, let me speak on that. I just watched the WNBA game the other day, and boy, I love it more than the
Oh,
NBA.
come
I
on.
mean,
Stop that, bro. Stop that, bro.
they play with more intensity, right? They play like they got something to prove, which they do.
Uh-huh.
You know, I'm sorry to say. I mean, yes, I love to see the dunks in the NBA, but now they're hoisting up threes every doggone game. There's no defense anywhere in the NBA. And so, as far as the product goes, when I look at it with totally just like put it side by side, I like what the WNBA is doing. It has nothing to do with the product. Here's what it has to do with: it's straight mismanagement. And if you think about every city that they're in right now, the WNBA, here's what I would do, especially with the Chicago Sky who just won a championship. Why is there not a push to invest in getting more girls basketball teams throughout some of these elementary schools that can support them? Why? Right? You
Because there's no money in it.
great teams, right? When you look at it at a base level, great teams don't just get a bunch of great free agents and sustain success, right? They also have to work at getting great draft picks, looking at college, they look at high school for they even go as far as elementary school and start determining. They saw what's his name, Zion Williamson in elementary school. Right? You have to cultivate the talent to get it into your league. And you don't even have a good number of girls teams in the city.
But
in the cities that you're in.
those schools, though, they're not going to put that type of effort into it because they have no confidence whatsoever that people would actually come to watch the product. And why would they believe that when nobody is coming to watch the WNBA? And the idea that the product is not part of the problem and that the product that the WNBA puts out is on some level comparable to what you see in the NBA. Nah, man. There's millions of views on YouTube dedicated strictly to compilation videos of these sisters missing shots, not being able to dunk, showing little to no athleticism. It doesn't compare at all to the NBA. And I do agree that on some level, that's a management problem and that things need to change about how the game is played in the WNBA to make the product look better. But as it stands right here, right now, I understand you watch one game and you enjoyed it. That's fine. Watch 20 games straight. It's just not the same. It's not a comparable level of quality. And I would say that's both because of the players and because of the management. And
Watch
in the
a
total
Bulls game after Lonzo Ball went unhealthy. Watch a Bulls game and you will see lots of unathletic plays. You will see lots of bullshit up and down the court. They can't even do a half court set. They can't do anything without Alonzo Ball on that team. And they have arguably, they got Zach LaVine, they got DeMar DeRozan, Caruso, and Booyacek. They're supposed to have athletic guys and scores. And look what they do without that one guy. Look at those games, okay? Look, and even beyond that argument, right? Elementary schools do not care if people are coming to those games. I have been to many elementary school basketball games over my time. There's barely anybody there at most of them. They don't care as long as somebody's flipping the bill to do it. They don't care. And it's an easy bill to flip, to pay a referee from the Park District to come and referee the games and to get a few jerseys out. They can do that. They're being lazy about it. They don't. The school has no care at the elementary school level, and if
I
you
don't think it's
cultivate it
fair to call
there,
people lazy when they're not even sure there's any interest. Like, why are you so confident that they be able to pull a team together?
why wouldn't they? Why are we confident that they couldn't?
I don't feel like it. I don't feel like they could. I don't feel like that's the when you look like nationwide, as far as women who are interested in basketball, who are interested in those type of sports, period. Like imagine that a women's NFL league came about. Do you feel like there'd be all of a sudden women across the country who want to play football? Like
That's
my
why you
wife,
have to
my
cultivate
wife
it.
never sits next to me when I'm watching Bulls games. She's always like, "Oh, you're watching sports? All right, I'm going to go do something else." Like
That's
it's not
why
the
you
same.
have to cultivate it. You don't just sit on your hands. You got lots of girls who probably got some good talent to be able to do it.
Hmm.
But if you never offer it, how do you know? That's a surefire way you're not going to cultivate much response. If you never offer it, I
That's
get,
true.
at my daughter's elementary school right now, there are two with girls teams. One for fifth and sixth grade, another for seventh and eighth.
Hmm.
And they are full rosters.
Hmm.
I'm sorry, you can't tell me you can't get more interest than you got right now in a city where we just won the WNBA title.
Mhm.
I'm sorry, you can't tell me that. So, Chicago, one of the meccas of basketball, you're telling me we don't have enough girls to foster some more teams in this city. And if you start at the elementary school level and get them to start getting excited about it there, it will start leading into high school. And if it starts bleeding into high school, then you're going to start seeing some traction. But you're not getting any because you're not even trying out there.
Okay. I'll concede this to you. Okay. Okay.
Now, we can argue all
And
day if the product from WNBA is better than the product from NBA. But what I can tell you is that no
Mhm.
matter where the product is now, it improves if we cultivate it at the beginning of the cycle instead of waiting.
I agree. Now with you putting it like that, yes, I agree with that. I agree with that. I mean, frankly, I have a daughter. I would love to see my daughter join a basketball team and be able to be a part of that and get her own taste of, being able to play a sport and work within a team and all the things that you're able to develop from being a part of that kind of environment. So,
But to
absolutely.
come full circle, we were talking about Griner, right?
Yeah.
And why she was in Russia in the first place.
Hmm.
We might have to do a lot of cutting here, even
Yeah,
though it's a great conversation.
I
But
agree.
the overall thing was Griner and why was she there? Because she
Hmm.
just didn't make the money here and was unable to, you know, and it's going to be a shame that however much time she might have to serve with this sentence, her career is over.
Right.
Her career is pretty much over at this point.
So this will be the last time I circle back to it, but I think it's yet another exposure of an issue. I don't want to say management because I guess it's not WNBA management's responsibility to connect their superstars with sponsorship opportunities, but I just feel like there's an untapped well there where there should be more opportunities for these women to be able to make good money in the states without having to go over the seas, even when they are not playing basketball. I mean, that's what we see all the NBA players doing. They get all sorts of commercials, sponsorships, speaking opportunities. They release books. They've got four, five, six, seven different outlets they can use. I mean, Green has his own podcast now. There's a bunch of different ways that you can make money, even if you're not playing basketball. And it's not clear to me if these women are really one, if they're thinking on that level and trying to make money, or more to the point, if those opportunities are even really available to them. And so again, I do feel like it comes back to management on some level to try to open those doors and say, hey, our our players, the people who are in our organization, they're worthy of these opportunities and they should be getting them.
Well, I like I said, there's no argument for me that this is being mismanaged. You
Hmm.
know, whether it's from the ground up or where they currently are now. There's no thought in my mind that they're handling this properly. And like you said, yes, there are plenty of avenues, and there are plenty of ways to generate revenue, to help your players generate revenue. So I mean, I just don't. If you think about it, every every time your player steps onto another court, I mean, that's a chance for them to get hurt.
Hmm.
Even without this Griner situation going to prison, there's a chance that your player gets hurt and is out for a season. If you're talking about a player like Griner who was scoring 20 points a game and 9 rebounds a game, I mean, that's a major player for them.
Right.
So, that's a major thing. And their team is about to suit up again and go play
Hmm.
again. And they got to play without her now, right?
Absolutely.
So, it's definitely a mismanagement.
Hmm.
Definitely that.
So it seems like today we're on the subject of black women being mistreated or women being mistreated in general. So I feel like we might as well kind of stay on this track, even though I feel like with this next topic, I think I side with the brother more. But there's a video that's come out recently of Blueface in a physical altercation with his girlfriend, Christiane Rock. I hope I'm pronouncing that name right. I might not be though. Um, usually we're not going to do the usual entertainment, gossip type news. This is stuff that I usually wouldn't touch, but I feel like it's an interesting opportunity because it was very, very clear she was aggressive. He was essentially trying to walk away, and she kept running up to him and being physically hostile towards him to the point that they fought each other for honestly an extended period of time. And you can see footage also of some civilians who happen to be in the area trying to get in between them and break things up and calm down the situation. And I think it's just an interesting example of one, the kind of women that you have to avoid. Like, you shouldn't be involved in relationships with women who will try to deal with you in that manner. But also, like, just as a man, the type of situations you allow yourself to be in. Like, Blueface, he purposefully gets involved with women who are like this. And that could be so dangerous. Like, it doesn't seem like this is really being looked at as other situations where a man was aggressive or physically hostile towards another woman, but it could have easily went down that way regardless of whether or not he's in the right. And to see these brothers who don't respect themselves or their reputations more by avoiding these types of situations and surrounding themselves with these type of people, I just don't understand it. What were your thoughts, Hudson?
First off, I saw the video, but who the hell is Blueface? Like, like,
Oh, you don't know Blueface?
what does he do?
He's a rapper. So he's a rapper, but even more importantly, he started, I guess it's kind of like a reality show where there'll be like 15 or 20 women that are all in his house together. And most of them, yeah, I don't watch the show, but from like the clips I've seen when I'm watching other things, it looks like most of them are, video girls, girls with daddy issues, girls with problems. It looks like basically he's taking Real Housewives and bringing it to his home. And um from what I've read though, it's making him quite a bit of money. So it's not like this is a drain on his resources at
Yeah,
all. It's
people love
exactly.
ratchet shit. I mean,
Exactly.
people love that.
Exactly. But that means situations like this crop up because of course, he's not treating all of them like friends. He's getting involved with some of them. And then situations like this occur. It just is what it is.
I want people to notice when they see the video, right? When you see other videos, like when the man is the aggressor, well, he get tackled. Like people come up and tackle him. Boy. Now, when the woman's the aggressor, you get somebody put a hand up,
Yep.
might stand there a little bit.
Yep.
But I heard in the video real clear, don't touch me. And boy, ain't nobody touching.
Mm-hmm.
right? So she's still able to try to get in some shots, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought that was kind of funny. But I mean, clearly she was the aggressor in the first part of the video that you get to see is she's pulling him and she's saying the car is this way, right? So he's trying to. I don't know if he was just gonna let her take the car on back. I don't know if he had the keys on him. It's just like I'm just gonna walk away and walk it over here. But clearly
Mm-hmm.
he was just trying to walk away and get away from there. But he also, it's hard for me to say, hey, it's a real victim here because I mean he
Mm-hmm.
it's clear, and I didn't even know who Blueface was. I didn't know any of this. You just told me all of this now about him having 20 ratchet chicks in his in this show in his house. I didn't know anything about that. But it was clear to me that he was in a situation he has put himself willingly in. So it's hard for me to let him play victim here on something that he's doing. Now, there's no excuse to start swinging and hitting people. There's no
Mm-hmm.
excuse for it. She should not do it, and she should be punished for something like that. So I'm not making an excuse there.
Mm-hmm.
But I am saying about him that I would say to a woman who was in this situation, who was purposely putting herself in that situation, is that you should not do that, right? It's different if you feel like you need help and you can't get help. You feel like you're stuck some kind of way. You feel like mentally you just can't get away. I understand that there's that type of abuse that goes on, and you know you feel almost paralyzed to get out of it. This ain't that.
No, not at all.
This ain't that.
You
So,
you you know what I thought when I looked at it? Um, I felt really bad for the people who were trying to intervene
uh,
because to me it was a stark reminder that as a man, when you're walking down the street and you see a woman being abused, whether it be verbally or physical, you got to be really, really careful about whether or not you get involved. Um, I've only had one situation where that occurred, and both of my younger brothers were with me at the time. It was like 2 o'clock in the morning, and this fool had brought his girlfriend, and she had fallen asleep on the couch. And for whatever reason, like he was drunk, he got upset that she had fallen asleep, so he opened up a bottle of vodka and poured it all over her face while she was like sleeping face up. So the vodka went like all in her eyes, all in her nose. Like it was actually really horrible to see. And it was something that happened so quickly. It wasn't like you could like stop him because we didn't realize at first what he was trying to do. But I stood up and was like, "Yo, you can't do that to her." And he, stopped pouring that vodka and backed away. But we were around like 10 or 15 other people, and it was obvious, they were close friends with him. So it was going to be this brawl if my brothers and I decided to take this further. And it was obvious she was okay. Her friends came around, her friends pulled her away. So my brothers and I, we walked out the house. About a month later, my youngest brother was having a party at the house. Guy shows up and she's draped on his arm. And it's just one of those things where we could have taken it further, or maybe he did, maybe he doesn't stop, and we end up having to get into a physical altercation in order to make him stop. And this could potentially be a situation that seriously impacts your life, seriously harms you. Meanwhile, she's right back with him. And this is the same situation here. Like, let's say Blueface was a much more violent person, and maybe he was the aggressor, maybe he was abusing her, and he hurts one of these people who tries to get in the middle of them. At the end of that same night, they were back at the same house together.
yeah,
Like they're abusing each other and they're with each other, and it just is what it is. So when you walk down the street and you see a woman that is being beaten or harmed by another brother, you can't just jump up and say, "Oh, I'm not going to allow that. I'm not going to, let that happen in front of me." Because it could very easily be a situation where that man beat your ass and then she gets in a car with him and they fucking later on that night and don't think about you at all. Like it's just such a difficult call about whether or not it's the right decision to put your person on the line. And for me, and I'm not saying I wouldn't do that again, because I understand morally as a man, I shouldn't stand by and allow a woman to be victimized. But I understand the brothers who I see saying, if I was in the same situation, I wouldn't do anything, because it's just not cut and dry.
Mhm. I, for me, I think, it goes back to some advice that my father gave me a long time ago. And that advice was, if you if a homeless person comes up to you and asks you for $5, right? Um, and you have the $5 to give and you can give it, it's not your duty to ask him what he's going to use the $5 for.
I agree with that.
Right? It's on the lines of this, right? If you feel in your heart that if you're the type of person you want to intervene, there's a risk to it. There absolutely is. And there's always a chance that this person's gonna go back and they're gonna be together the same night. In fact, I would tell you it's a much better chance than not that they're gonna go back and be in the same place that night. You have to
hmm
realize you got to do that for you. You're doing that because you feel like it's the right thing, and you got to let the rest of it go if you're going to be the type to do that. Now, for me, it's a simple thing for me. I'll call the police,
hmm
right? I'm just, I'll make that call in front of you. I'm right here, 911. Yeah, I have somebody over here beating on this woman.
hmm
Beating on her real good. Yep, I am at 10th and Main. Yep, right here. Beating on her
hmm
real good. Yeah, she's taking a beat. And
Wow.
I got kids to go home to.
hmm
I got kids to go home to. But, my conscience can't let me just not do anything.
Right.
So the safest route is just call the police, let them sort it out, right? Because you don't know what's going on. You don't know what he's got. He's not going to be the type of guy to stand up to a man. So what's he going to do if he decides to confront you? He's probably got something.
Right.
If he's got something, he's going to be so scared that he's going to use it, right?
hmm
So for me, that it's not worth the risk for my kids to find out they don't have a father,
hmm
right? So, like I said, though, I ain't calling the police for her. I'm not.
hmm
I'm calling them because I think that it's the right thing to do. I'm calling them because if my wife was in a situation, I would at least want somebody to pick up the phone.
Right.
At least somebody pick up the phone and make a call. Because maybe just picking up that phone and making that call will stop the person from doing something.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta agree with that perspective, because honestly, for me to see a woman being abused and then just walk away and do nothing, it would hurt me.
Yeah,
That's something that would stay with me. Like, there's just no way I would feel right about it.
yeah,
I mean, honestly, it's probably better to, to stand up, even if the situation doesn't work out the way you wanted to. It's better to have done that and know that you did the right thing when called upon than to just walk away
mhm,
and allow someone to continue to be abused. I talked with a woman about this once, and she said that you don't you don't stand up because you feel like she's going to leave right then. You hope that sometime in the future, when she's really tired of the abuse, she will remember that people stood up for her and that she could do better. And that if she wanted to leave, there are people out there who would support her, and that you would be a part of that. You would be part of the reason why she decided to finally walk away from the abuse. And so that's also something that I've always held to. But at the end of the day, still, I do understand the perspective of those brothers who are like, why am I putting myself on the line and why am I getting involved? it's a tough world we live in.
Well, it sounds like it's a nice segue
Yep,
to our
that's what I was
next
about to
topic.
say. So I feel like this is kind of related to something that it wasn't a major news story at all. It's just something that broke out on Twitter. So I think this happened in Chicago, but I don't know any of the names involved.
West
Like I
side of
said,
Detroit,
what say?
Detroit's west side.
It
It
broke out
was
in Detroit
Detroit.
West
Definitely
Side. Got
Detroit.
you,
Yeah.
got you. So basically, this woman had a dispute with her boyfriend, and I don't know what the nature of the dispute was, but at some point she told him, "I'm going to get my brothers to come beat you up." She got her brothers, came back over, and I don't know what was going through her brothers' heads, but they ran up in that man's house. They broke in and ran in that man's house, and clearly he was the wrong brother to do that to. Pulled out his gun and unloaded on them.
Well, I
At
forgot to tell you, there's a
uh-huh.
little bit more that I've read on this.
Oh, okay,
Once
cool.
I found out it happened in Detroit, I was
Yep.
able to look up a couple. Like I said, it still wasn't big news,
Right.
but there's a couple articles on it. And basically, what the police were able to find out initially was that, yes, those brothers came by. And now it makes sense why everybody was already out there filming
Hmm.
because when the brothers initially came over, right, at her request, she was there. She left to go get them,
Hmm.
right? And when they came back, they all decided to have a fist fight.
Oh wow.
They were out there fighting on the yard.
Hmm.
Now, at which point, it sounds to me, based on what I read, is that maybe these brothers were not satisfied with the outcome and
Mm.
continued to try then to get into the house. And that's when
Mm.
that's when he was like, "Oh no, 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 no! This
And
was
see,
this was fisticuffs on the yard.
and
Now
see, you
you're
can't
in
do
the
that. You
house."
can't do that. This is the problem. Some brothers don't have no limitations. They don't understand, like, hey, you can go this far, but you can't go no further. All
Mhm,
right. If we have a fist fight in the yard, when I go back in my crib, that's it.
mhm.
Y'all go home. I don't care how upset you are. I don't care what's going on through your mind. You do not have the right to come into my home. So whatever happened on that yard, the brother went back inside, and these other two brothers, they decided to try to follow him in. He pulled out his weapon. He unloaded on
Yes, he
these
did.
brothers. And the video that's on Twitter, it basically starts, I guess, right after they had entered. So you see both of them running out. He killed one of them, and the other one is in critical condition. I don't know yet if it's clear whether or not he's going to make it. But at the end of the day, you got these two brothers getting involved in what is essentially a domestic dispute. I don't get involved in no domestic disputes because I know you gonna get right back with this nigga next month anyway. So what do I look like putting my body on the line because he said something you don't like? Unless he slapped you or he stole something from you or he gave you a disease, I don't want to hear it. Don't tell me about, oh, he cheated on you, oh, you upset, oh, y'all about to break up. That is not a reason for me to be going over to this brother's house and trying to beat on him or potentially jump him or kill him or whatever it is these women love to ask their brothers and their friends to do. We look at the violence and the crime that is happening in this city. So much of it revolves around brothers either doing what some woman told them to do or responding to some woman set up or try to make happen. So much of it revolves around bullshit having to do with women.
Wait, wait,
And
wait,
I'm
wait,
tired
wait.
of seeing it.
Oh man, that right there is a good segue into our next topic. But hold on, we ain't ready
Mhm.
to get into that topic yet. But look, let me say, even if sister came over, my sister came over, said, "Hey, yeah, he was slapping me. Is this what he slapped you? Give me the phone." 911. I mean, seriously, she had already warned him that she's going to get him. She's
Hmm.
already warned him. And if he's been involved with her, he probably knows that these guys are coming.
Yep.
So he already knows. So he had the pistol right there by the door ready.
This
He
is
had
the
it
other
right there
thing that's
ready.
crazy to me about the situation. Did she, if you've been dealing with him, you had to have known this brother is strapped. You
Yeah.
had to have known this brother had a gun. Did you tell your brothers that this man carries a pistol when you had them go over there? And if you didn't, how did you leave this information out? Because to me, any any standard street nigga worth his salt, if I know you carry a weapon, I'm not running in your house. Like that's just bottom line. Because once I kick in that door, what are you going to do? You're going to unload on me. That's just basic understanding. So I just have to believe she didn't tell them that he had a gun, which is fucking crazy.
Well, I
Why
gotta
would you
say,
put your flesh and blood in that situation?
I'm surprised he went as far as to even have the fight. I'm surprised because I would think in his situation, because I'd have been like, if you don't leave my property, it's done deal. I wouldn't even tell him. I just tell him, you need to leave my property.
Well,
And if they don't, then I'm coming.
see, I can think
So,
of a couple of different reasons why he might have fought him. He might have fought him because he's like, y'all a couple of bitches anyway. So I'm gonna beat y'all ass in front of my whole neighborhood and, and score some points off of it. It might have been that he actually did feel like he was wrong. He's like, you know what? She got a point. I smacked her. I shouldn't have done that. So look, I'm a fist fight y'all because y'all, you know what, y'all should be able to get a couple of licks in. My bad. And then hopefully after this goes no further. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes you allow yourself to get involved in a certain situation in the hopes that more serious situations do not occur. So I can think of a couple of reasons why he did that fist fight. I can't think of any reason why those two brothers would go into the home of a man that they knew was armed. And frankly, even if they did know he was armed, why would you go into the house of a person if you weren't absolutely sure they weren't armed? Which there's no way for them to know that. So what are you doing?
see,
What are you doing?
and that's where my line of thinking becomes different because I think to myself, nobody with some sense is really going to come over here and try to, try, like why would I even take a chance and go, even if I think they some big chance niggas? So, why would I even take the chance to fight two dudes when I got a pistol right here? Right? Why am I even,
This is a fact. I
why am
got
I
you.
risking even taking an ass whooping? Why am I
Mm-hmm.
even risking that?
Mm-hmm.
For
Mm-hmm.
what? To do what? To prove to who? You
Mm-hmm.
know what I mean? So for me, if two guys are stupid enough to come follow this woman over here,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, no. And I already know because I've been with this woman, right? I already know who she is. I already know who those two are. No, you get after this, you getting dealt on sight. Period.
Mm-hmm.
Come on my property. I'm gonna give you one warning to step off my property.
Mm-hmm.
Period. It's done after that.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So I just don't. And see, and this is the problem. It's that fist fight that's probably even got him in a leak in because he's in custody right now.
Mm-hmm.
They're trying to sort this thing out. And I guarantee you it's that fist fight that if he had just kept it simple, get off my property.
Right.
and then he could have shot him after that. And I
Well,
guarantee you he would not be in custody right now.
Well, what some of the people who looked at the footage were saying, and I don't think I agree with this, but you can kind of make the case. What they are saying is that it was essentially an execution and he could go to jail for it because they run in, he starts letting off some shots, they run out. That final shot that killed the guy, the brother who's dead, he was already outside, like physically outside of the house with his back turned. And I think he might have even been on the ground when the guy walked out and, shot him wherever he shot him. And so they're saying, like, yes, those initial shots when they ran in, those are justified. But once the intruders turn their back and they're running from you, you no longer can make the case that you were in danger. Now, I'd make the case that I don't know what's in their car, and I'm gonna take these people out before they start
Yeah.
firing off shots at my house. So you come in my house, it's a done deal, bro. You can't come in and then walk away like, oh, my bad, it was wrong house. No, 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 no. Take this lead with you. So I personally side with the brother, but from a legal standpoint, I don't know how Detroit works. I don't think they really have, stand your ground laws or whatever in Detroit. So he might be in a really bad spot legally, even though they were the aggressors.
Which is why the fist fight never would happen.
But again, it all comes down to them running around doing what some woman told them to, which is a serious problem. And segues into our very, very last topic, which should be
TD
fascinating.
because he
Mr.
would agree with you.
He would. Pastor TD Jakes had a sermon. I don't think it was this past week. It might have been a couple of weeks ago. I think it was sometime in July. But he had a sermon called Real Men Pour In. And it was basically about how he feels there are a lot of women in the Black community who are essentially being raised to be men. They're over aggressive. They are waving their money around everywhere. They're making it very difficult for Black men to see how they fit in these women's lives. And TD Jakes basically said, we as a society are not rewarding women who present themselves as more feminine, that we live in a society now where we want women to be over aggressive and basically, again, operating as men. There was definitely a negative reaction to this online when you look at Twitterverse and things of that nature. And some pictures came out showing the seats in his congregation during some of the sermons after this came out. And it shows a ton of empty seats. And basically, the story was presented as Black women are abandoning his church due to the message that he recently came out with. Now, let's be completely honest. Black folks have been abandoning the church for years now. It didn't start just now. So it's completely possible those seats were empty already. And it just now became a story that all those seats are empty. But it doesn't change the online rhetoric and the sentiment that he has talked down to Black women to some degree, and that it has on some level cost them. Hudson, what are your thoughts?
So the sermon was Father's Day sermon. So I have a feeling it was closer to the end of June when that sermon came out. Now he didn't post it. It looked like until the 5th of July. So I would guess I'm guessing there's a delay. I'm guessing to give people incentive to actually go to the sermon. Maybe I
Right.
don't know. And then he delays the release onto his or there was other things that he released before that were part of that day too. Who knows? I'm sure he's not the only one that gets up and speaks, right,
Mm-hmm.
during his church services. But I think he threw a lot of very subtle uh, very subtle jabs in there, and there were ways and that he was trying to keep it clean, but you could tell there was something else he wanted to say in there, right? He was trying to keep it as, but are we surprised? I mean, that's the church. That's the church. There's always been this. You have some more progressive church leaders now who try to, but for the most part, that's the church. That's the hierarchy. There's a hierarchy that they have, and that's the man is leading the home. Now, it's not a problem for me to say the man is leading the home. What the problem is for me is keep on defining what that means, right? It's the definition of what that means, or how he's leading the home, right? It seems to have to be monetarily, right? It seems to
Mm-hmm.
always have to be the disciplinarian. seems to always have to be these certain roles that he keeps assigning. And here's the funny part. In the middle of his sermon, he says, I'm not saying it as a gender thing. I'm saying it as a role thing, right? But he's repeatedly making references to the actual gender.
Yeah. Why
So
would you bother saying that?
he's clearly throwing like and what's interesting to me is that it's a Father's Day sermon. And he
Hmm.
seems to be going out of his way to take a Father's Day sermon and it seemed half and half to me of I'm speaking to the fathers, now I'm speaking to the women. Speaking to the
Hmm.
fathers, so I'm speaking to the women. And it just seemed like I'm trying to lift you up and I'm taking a little shot here. I'm trying to lift you up, take a little shot there. And that's what the whole sermon looked like to me.
So that didn't really catch me off guard because to me, what he's doing is like it's Father's Day, but he's essentially standing up for the men. He's saying, brothers in the community, the women are not treating you properly. They don't have the type of attitudes that allow you to have whole um quality relationships, and this needs to change. So he's doing this on Father's Day, even though he's really not talking to the men, he's talking on behalf of the men. He's trying to essentially help the men because he sees the breakdown. And I'd argue that the church is part of the reason for that breakdown. Like, yeah, I agree. There's a hierarchy in the church, and they're all about the man standing at the front and all that. But I'd also argue that that doesn't really show through in how they deal with black women. Black women are the ones filling up these churches in droves for decades because they know they can come there and be told what they want to hear. You don't need that man. You can do better without him. You could take care of it yourself, blah 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 blah. The black church has been a huge part of pumping this message into the black community. And so to me, when I see this sermon from TD Jakes, it's almost like, man, I've been doing this for years and I think I'm starting to see some really negative effects from that. I need to I need to pull back. I need to fight against that. And so the question is the problem as prevalent as he says? And and is this a mutual issue or is this an issue with specifically black women? Now, I think before we get further in the conversation, it should be made clear both of us are married. All right. And both of us are married to women who work. So neither one of us really have traditional women that are sitting at home, cooking and cleaning, waiting for the man to get home. And in my relationship, I work. So both of us are essentially going out to work. And then we have a daughter we're coming back home to take care of. In your situation, you all have multiple children, but you actually don't work. So your wife is essentially the one who is, the breadwinner or whatever in the household. So listening to that sermon and how he talked about women being more aggressive and, kind of taken over the role of what should be the man, yada, yada, yada. Did it, considering the background that you come from, did it give you any specific thoughts?
Well, I mean, I think he's very misguided, right? There, so the sermon's called right, real men pour in, right?
Hmm.
But what are we pouring in, right? And this is where it gets misguided to me, right? He makes mention of that I pour in, and she takes what I pour in and makes it better and multiplies it,
Hmm.
right? And he's saying it in such a way because he made other references. So I know this is how he's saying it. He's saying it in such a way of I bring home the bacon, she makes it better by cooking it. and,
Right.
and and she divides it up so that everyone multiplies, so that everyone in the house can get it. And this is the way he's presenting it, right?
Hmm.
And I would argue that I can pour in, and it doesn't have to be monetary. I can pour in lots of things that have nothing to do with money. And again, I've had issues with this with many people, these alpha males that's out here, the sorry, alpha
Mhm.
males. It's
Mhm.
why are you limiting us to a paycheck?
Mhm.
And it's crazy because he repeatedly, addressed the men in saying you have to be more than a paycheck. But it's still he's double talking because that's the general role he's still trying to trying to
Mhm.
supply us with, because he makes this comment of you can't feel like a real man if you're asking your wife for lunch money,
Mhm.
right? This is
Mhm.
a statement that came out of his mouth, right? you
Mhm.
know and so he's not considering the fact that it's not that I asked my wife for lunch money. The lunch money's mine. It's mine just as much as hers, right?
Mhm.
It's the same as when the kids come and ask me for something to eat.
Mhm.
The food is theirs. It's there for them. They can
Mhm.
have anything that's in the cabinet and refrigerator. They're not asking me for the food, really. They're asking me to fix it because they can't use the stove. They can't reach the microwave. So
Mhm.
they're not asking me for food. That's just
Mhm.
how they say it. That's how everyone's been trained to say it. They're asking me to get up and fix it, is what they're really asking me to do. They know I'm going to feed them. They
Mhm.
know the food's here for them. So it's really along the same lines.
Mhm.
The money's there for all of us. So of course, the money from the job comes into her account because it's her job, right?
Right.
So of course it comes there. But it is so for me, it didn't bother me. It's the kind of weird, dumb stuff I've heard many people say and many people do. And these, but it was just sort of. I mean, it's surprising to me that it's taken this long. For I can't believe this is the first sermon where he's done this.
Mhm.
And it's surprising to me that maybe it's the first one. I haven't heard a lot of his sermons. So maybe this is the first one where it was just this blatant. I don't know. Because this one was pretty blatant.
Mhm.
Look, there was what was it? He mentioned Adam and Eve. And this is where it really got me. Like this is where it really it's like he really
Mhm.
showed his ass with this one. He was making mention of how God is complete, right? Even though we call him the Father, right?
Mhm.
He is complete. He doesn't need anything to reproduce and to create, right?
Mhm.
He encompasses man, woman, and everything. He's all, right? He made this mention. Then he made mention that man was created in his image, right? Adam,
Mhm.
right? Eve is only a rib,
Mhm.
right? So in his view, now he said it more eloquently and all of that, but basically what comes down to man is the closest to God, right?
Mhm.
Which is why man should do the pouring, and women are they're just a little side, a little rib, right? Basically, all our problems started because Eve was pouring into Adam. And
Mhm.
that's why the apple got ate and we got original sin, right?
Yep.
And when he
Standard
put that,
Christian doctrine.
I was like, holy crap, he showed all his ass on that one right there. I'm surprised people didn't walk out at that point.
Not really. That's like pretty much standard stuff for the church, to be honest with you. But they find a way to also tiptoe around it and still pander to women. So I think you're surprised at the reaction to to his sermon, because you were basically saying like, I can't believe it's possible that this is the first time he's talked about black women like this. I bet you it is. I bet you he spent decades essentially pandering to a mostly black female audience, and is now like, look, things are too far gone, relationships are breaking down, we're having serious problems with the communities, y'all got to do better. And the reaction has been visceral because yeah, they're not used to this kind of content from him. I'm kind of divided. On the one hand, I agree with you that the role of the black man in black relationships is more than just a paycheck. And whether or not you're a man, whether or not you're doing what you're supposed to be doing in a relationship and standing up for your family, it doesn't just boil down to whether or not you have a damn job or whether or not you bring money into the household. Yes, it's important for money to be coming in from somebody, but I don't think it speaks poorly of the man based on whether it's the woman or the man doing it. All that being said, I think it's very difficult to argue that we don't have a plethora of black women running around who have been able to enrich themselves, who are more financially successful than a lot of the black men who are around them, and they have no idea how to handle it, what to do with it, and how to have a successful relationship with another black man in this position. And you do not have the same issue with black men. If a black man is making six figures a year, he doesn't give a damn about marrying a woman who's making $20,000 a year, because how much money she makes is not part of what he considers when he's deciding whether or not she's a worthy mate. But you have these women who have entered into these positions of financial empowerment, but they still want to conduct themselves as if they need to be taken care of, as if there is a man who should be coming by who is taking care of everything, paying for everything, and I just so happen to make money, but all that money is mine. That's not the way life works. That's not the way relationships work. If you want to be the boss, then be the boss and be willing to have these relationships with brothers who are not making nearly as much money as you. And if you're not willing to do that, well, then don't complain and say there's no good men or you're having trouble finding men. No, the problem is you. The problem is you, because you have unrealistic expectations about the type of man who should be coming your way. And that's my whole issue. And that's the part I appreciated about TD Jake's sermon, because he's essentially saying you don't allow men the space to be able to have a relationship with you. And I see that all the time in our community. These women who are making 60, 70, 80, 90, $100,000 a year and don't handle it well at all when it comes to relationships, because you still want to pretend that you need to be taken care of.
Well, I mean, it's really a double-edged sword, because when I heard that section about that, when he said that, I think it started with, these women are climbing the corporate ladder
Uh
but
huh.
not taking care of their homes, right? And I think when he said it, you know, he was basically saying the opposite of that. He was saying that these women are saying they don't need anything from a man, don't need a man at all, which is why the man has no place in there. And now my thing is that it's exactly his sermon, and it's exactly the line of thinking we've had for generations that has helped create that. Where the woman thinks that we've reduced ourselves to a paycheck for so long, and we're mad because now a woman says, if you don't make more than me, what's the use of it?
Well, remember, he said both, because he was like, the woman's coming home saying, I bought this for myself. I bought that for myself. I don't need anything from you. And so he's basically saying, you don't create any space for a man to feel needed in your life. So it's still circling around. You don't know how to handle your money in a way that allows someone else to be in a relationship with you. Like, imagine if you switch that around and a man is basically always waving his money in a woman's face, saying, I bought myself a new watch, I bought myself a new car, I bought myself a new house. The hell do I need you for? You just here for pussy, girl. Like, I don't really need you in my life. Same difference. You're not giving that woman any opportunity to actually be a part of your life and to foster a healthy relationship.
Well, I mean, I would say he's trying to cover need, but there's more to, right. It's not just need; it's a want too,
Hmm.
right? So she's got her needs covered. Okay, does she have all her wants covered? There's still room there, right? But in the traditional sense, men have never had to worry about the woman's wants. We had to worry about do we provide the money for them to get the food, to feed the children, to do this, do that, and maybe every once in a while we can buy her a purse, or or throw her there and get her nails done a little bit, and she'll be all right. But we
Hmm.
have never had to traditionally worry about the wants, right? So now when a woman can get everything she needs, get her hair done wherever she wants, get her nails done wherever she wants, get the car she wants, she don't gotta ask nobody for it.
Hmm.
Of course we got a problem with where do we go? Because we've been working off of need, right? We've been working off of, what was it, in the 70s before a woman could get a bank account in every state? I mean, that's not that far away from. I was born in 1980. I
Hmm.
mean, so
Hmm.
we've been working off of just need this whole time, and given the basically being able to provide the essentials, and being able to run the house off of that. But now it takes more than that. Now a woman's got a choice, and she's flexing her choice. Now I agree that she doesn't know how to handle it, right? But neither do we.
Hmm.
Neither do we.
Hmm.
And last I checked, it takes two to make a relationship.
That's absolutely
So,
true.
so we're both having problems trying to figure out how men and women fit together in a world now where a woman can be a CEO.
Hmm.
But still in a world where enough women who probably deserve to be CEOs are not. So I mean, to a certain extent, I feel that part where they don't. But if the need isn't there, it just isn't there.
Hmm.
But there's more to it than a need. It's a want, and that want kind of comes in as a need too, because once you give her what she wants, you give a woman what she wants, you'll find that she ends up needing.
That's a fact. That's true.
I mean, you treat a woman so good, give her everything she wants, right?
Hmm.
And break up with her after that. Or she gonna be thinking about you in every relationship she have after that.
Hmm.
She gonna be comparing men to you for the next 20, 30 years.
That's a fact.
you
That's
know,
a fact.
and it's true for us too. I mean, we get a woman that really treats us, like the way we want to be treated. It's the same thing
Hmm.
for us. We'll be comparing, you know, to everybody else to that woman for a long time. So I mean, that's just it. TD Jakes is talking about need, right? And he's asking someone who doesn't need anything necessarily to okay, open up that need so that he can march right in.
Hmm.
It's our responsibility to show them that we're worth something beyond those essentials. We're worth something beyond going out and clubbing a lion and bringing home the meat. Or, I mean, I'm more than that now. We're in a civilized society. I mean, what happened
Hmm.
when we didn't have to club lions anymore?
Hmm.
It changed then too. We had to change then too. Right?
Hmm.
Because now they didn't need us to stop lions from coming up to the gates. I mean, we have society now built
Hmm.
around that. So, I mean, we do have a lot to figure out as far as men and women relationships now that tides are starting to turn. There's more equality is coming, not enough equality, but more is coming, right?
Hmm.
We do have a lot of things to figure out. I don't think TD Jakes is on the right track of figuring it out at this point in time. I
I
think
don't
he
think
needs somebody discernment to him on this one.
I don't think he's as wrong as you're saying that he's wrong, but I definitely agree that there's more to it than what he talked about. Um, and like you said, that at the end of the day, the role of the man in the household is more than a paycheck. And it's actually important to me that brothers realize that, because I feel like a lot of households have been broken up because brothers weren't bringing money in, and it made them feel like less of a man. It made them feel like, hey, what role do I serve here? But at the end of the day, you are still a husband and you are still a father, regardless of whether or not you can bring income in. You're still a man. Like stay there and keep that unit together. You don't need to run away from your problems and your issues, brother. You can lean into it and say, no matter what, we're going to figure this out as a family. And it's a responsibility of your woman as well to have that same mindset and decide that we're all going to support each other. So absolutely, I think there's some good points to be made all around. But that is the episode for today. Hopefully, you all enjoyed it. Like I said, this is probably a little bit different from what the episodes will be like in the future. We definitely want to focus more on what's happening in Chicago, on Chicago news, on what's actually impacting our city. But these issues came up throughout the week, and I saw the videos and I saw the news about Brittany, and I just felt like we really had to talk about it, especially as two black men who are both married to black women with children. I felt like we could provide a perspective on some of this that you're probably not going to hear from some of your other standard media outlets. So hopefully you all enjoy this episode. We will hopefully, by the time the next episode comes out, have some ways for you all to send us your feedback, potential topics that we could talk about, things of that nature. So give us a little bit of time. We're still pulling all that together, but it definitely is going to happen. I'm sure there are some of you have some strong feelings about the things we've talked about today. But for now, that ends the episode. Hopefully, all of you all enjoyed it. My name is Samori Sykes, and you already heard from Hudson Meadows. We hope all of you have a fantastic day. Take care.
Peace out.